Would I rather be feared or loved? Easy. Both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me. That's right, you've read the title of this video. Today we are ranking my top 10 favorite episodes from The Office. The Office is one of the greatest sitcoms of all time. Whether or not you agree, it had a huge cultural impact on the landscape of television and really changed the way that people thought of sitcoms. The fact that this show has remained so relevant to this day is astounding, and I think a true testament to how this show can reach so many people. And with the longevity of the show, there were a lot of episodes, so it was really difficult for me to nail it down to 10. But after hours of scrolling through the Wikipedia articles, reading through summaries of episodes, and reminiscing on good times I had of binging the show, I think I've come to my 10 favorite episodes. A few of these episodes on this list are going to be pretty subjective. You're probably going to see them and go, wait, what? And I just have my own tastes in humor and my own tastes in comedy, and so a few of them will seem kind of random. But I'd love to hear your guys' list in the comments down below, so please drop a comment with your top 10 or even top 5 favorite episodes from The Office. If you haven't subscribed already, then please make sure to do so, and without further ado, let's get started. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of what my process was, I went through the Wikipedia articles, read through the titles and summaries of most, if not all, of the episodes of The Office, and basically wrote down on a list, ranking from best to worst, any and all episodes that I would at least consider to be on this list. And the fact that there are 35 episodes on the list currently is just a testament to how great this show is. So I have to give a few honorable mentions. I wish you could give honorable mentions to all 35, and honestly, I thought about it, but I'm going to give honorable mentions to 4 episodes that just barely didn't make the cut. Honorable mention goes to Branch Wars.
Then we will burn Utica to the ground.
Honorable mention goes to Beach Games. I think Beach Games is a very solid episode of The Office that gets to showcase a different setting and really gets to show off different aspects of all the characters that we've come to love, as well as having a really dramatic and emotional Pam moment, which is great. On top of just being a hilarious episode, of course. Honorable mention goes to Dinner Party, which I know is going to be at the top of a bunch of people's lists, but for me personally, I didn't like it as much as a lot of people did. Although again, out of the hundreds of episodes on The Office, the fact that this made it to the honorable mentions is a big deal. I think this is a great episode, and I understand why it's so iconic. Just missed out on the top 10. And finally, honorable mention goes to an episode that I think is great in itself, but is also very notorious for one particular scene, and that is Frame Toby.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Alright, and now let's get into my top 10 favorite Office episodes. Starting it off at number 10 is Scott's Tots. If you were ever asked by anybody, what is quintessential Michael Scott, I would point every single one of them to this episode in season 6, Scott's Tots. I mean, how much more cringeworthy and yet hilarious can you get than that scene where Michael Scott suddenly realizes he will not be able to pay those kids' tuitions? But you can see it in Steve Carell's eyes as he looks on to them singing a song in his honor that he so desperately wants that attention and love and yet realizes he cannot deliver. On top of that, there is a really fun side plot with the Employee of the Month, where Dwight is conspiring to get Jim fired and basically corners him into picking himself as the Employee of the Month. I do admit, not the greatest B-plot of all time, but I think the scenes with Michael Scott at the school makes it all worth it. Coming in at number 9, we have Weight Loss. I mean, of course, there is the scene where Jim proposes to Pam, which is an iconic scene. But I think the overall premise of the story is actually really clever too. I think the idea of having a company-wide weight loss program is really funny. And the execution is, well, in typical Office fashion, pretty hilarious. You get to see some hijinks between Dwight and Angela, Michael and Holly, but yes, let's not kid ourselves, it all culminates with Jim proposing to Pam. One of the more memorable scenes in the entire show. Coming in at number 8 is Customer Survey. Now this is one where a lot of you may go, wait, Customer Survey, what's that one about? Well, let me just remind you about this glorious scene.
Louder, son! Bud Liquor! Our prices have never been lower!
Stop it!
That scene has to be one of the best scenes in the entire Office. At any rate, I also am pretty partial to the subplot of Jim and Pam being on the phone the entire time and Dwight having no idea what's going on. I think that was superbly executed. And I mean, the whole episode just being a setup for Kelly being mad at Jim and Dwight, this episode is a dumb premise. But honestly, Most Office episodes that are great and have great comedy have really dumb premises, as we're going to see with the next episode on the list. So, while this episode didn't really do anything to further the story, I think it's a really charming and fun episode. It's one of my personal favorites. But yeah, speaking of dumb and funny, number 7, The Injury. This was one of the first episodes in season 2 of The Office where you begin to realize just what the show has the potential to do, which is be funny, charming, absurd, and downright hilarious. I mean, the fact that Michael Scott burns his foot on a Foreman grill and comes to work and bemoans himself the entire day, and then Dwight just crashes his car and suffers a concussion, and then turns into this weird version of Dwight, this episode is nuts. But it's somehow grounded in reality so that it's not absurd to the point of it being unbelievable. It's just absurd. I think this is one of the quintessential episodes of The Office, one of the favorites that everyone points to and says, this is exactly what the potential and the promise of the show like The Office really delivers on. At number 6, I have Booze Cruise. Booze Cruise is, like The Injury was for comedy, one of the first episodes of The Office that I understood what the show could deliver on emotion. Up until that point, the Jim and Pam storyline had been building and building, but this is really one of the episodes that sort of began to realize that potential and bring it on to the small screen. When Roy reveals the wedding date and you can just see the look in Jim's face, that was somehow heartbreaking. And of course, Jim confides in Michael, which is the worst possible idea that you could ever do, because it's Michael Scott. And overall, just the premise of the episode with Michael trying to captain the ship and just take over the captain's job. It's so absurd, like I said with the last episode, but it works. It's funny, and it's got emotion, it has heartwarming moments, it's got just about everything you'd want from an Office episode. Coming in at number 5, Goodbye, Michael. Admittedly, the episode within itself is not necessarily one of the greatest episodes of The Office, but it's more of what the episode represents for the show. This being Steve Carell's final episode, and just the heartbreaking way in which he and Jim say goodbye. I heard in interviews that when Steve Carell and John Krasinski were doing that scene, they both just burst into tears and they couldn't get through it, and honestly, I can't blame them. This episode is beautiful. The ending that it gives to the character of Michael Scott, who, yes, will return, of course, but for now, the departure of this beloved character who has carried this show for 7 seasons, is heartbreaking. It's bittersweet, and rightly so, it felt like a part of the show went missing. And it's because of just the presence that Steve Carell has. This episode represents what The Office stood for and what was capable of doing. Not just being a funny show and a funny sitcom, but being a truly heartwarming and emotional one as well. Coming in at number 4 is Stress Relief. Yeah, let's roll some of that clip.
Stay alive, I'm getting help!
Pull me up!
You're too heavy!
I only weigh 82 pounds! Save Bandit!
So the cold open of this episode alone was enough to just put it in the top 20 episodes for me, but the rest of the episode is fantastic as well. The roast of Michael Scott is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in The Office, and the way that he comes back and goes, boom roasted, this episode is hilarious. So just like how last episode was the emotion of The Office, this is all the comedy, all of it. And then Dwight cuts the face off the dummy, and the whole Stanley plot, having the heart attack. I mean, this episode is comedy gold. One of the all-time most rewatchable episodes of The Office, in my opinion. Coming in at number 3 is Finale. Some people may not like this episode. I get it, that's fine. Season 9 wasn't the greatest season of The Office, neither was Season 8. So, to say that Season 9 and ending it that way might have been underwhelming, I can totally get that. For me personally, though, this finale basically takes everything good about The Office and puts it into one episode. The way that each character wraps up their own individual stories and reflects on their time in The Office is really a reflection on how we feel as we've gone through the journeys with the characters throughout the show. Of course, seeing Michael Scott back is fantastic. The wedding itself is a culmination of the stories of Dwight, Angela, Jim, Pam, everybody. Even Ryan and Kelly make an appearance, which is great. And I even like the Q&A part. I think what this finale was able to do is be a meta sort of episode that was saying thank you to the fans and sort of reflecting on what made this show so special. I mean, the ending had the actors talking about what they loved about the show as their characters, of course. And I mean, every time you watch The Office and every time you watch the finale and that final shot of the Dunder Mifflin offices come up, there's just an emptiness in your heart that you feel because, not in a bad way, just because you know you finished something that was so amazing. Even after seasons 8 and 9, you just feel like something's missing and you just got to go back in there and start watching the show all over again. That's the beauty of The Office, and this finale was able to really capture all of that. Coming in at number 2 is Casino Night. Now, Casino Night is a tense episode, and that's not something that you can normally say about an episode of The Office. Not a lot of the episodes have a lot of tension in them, but this episode is tense. You can feel the tension between Jim and Pam as they struggle with their feelings for each other that culminates in just the most crazy way at the end with their kiss. Meanwhile, you have Michael, who is being Michael and just trying to deal with both Carol and Jan at the same time. On top of that, the Casino Night is a fun subplot. You get to see a lot of the characters just have a good time. And this episode, I think, was one of the peaks of the show early on. It showed that the show understood that it wasn't just a comedy, like I've said many times before in this video, but that it was about the story of these characters, especially Jim and Pam. The fact that it took another season for them to get together is besides the point, although it's a little frustrating, but it was worth it. But at any rate, the ending of season 2 really proved that this show knew what it was and it was confident in where it was going. It was confident in being able to leave the audience hanging on a plot thread as tantalizing as that. And finally, my favorite episode of The Office, number 1, Niagara. Niagara sort of feels like the culmination of The Office. And to be quite honest with you, if you stopped watching the show after that episode, I think you would have been very happy. Of course, there's a lot of goodness after that, but this episode really felt like a finale within itself. The entire wedding scene is emotional. It is beautiful. It is somehow beautiful amidst the goofiness of the characters dancing down the aisles, which is one of my favorite scenes in television history. And the events leading up to the episode as well. The entire bit about Andy injuring himself, Pam trying to hide that she's pregnant from her family, Michael just trying to be obnoxious as usual, all leading up to a beautiful wedding. This was the show. This is the show. Jim and Pam are the heart and soul of this show. I mean, of course, Michael is as well, but, you know, the relationship between Jim and Pam, just like with Casino Night, is what drives The Office forward. And Niagara honestly feels like a very fitting conclusion and a next chapter, as it were, with season 7, 8, and 9, to the story that endeared audiences for years and years, and more years to come. So those are my top 10 episodes of The Office. Leave yours in the comments down below. I'd love to hear what you guys think and what your favorite episodes are. If you haven't subscribed, then please make sure to do so and give this video a like. And if you want to check out some more videos, then check out the videos on the screen right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.